I am Kate Tilton, a founder of Kate Tilton's Author Services, and Eric is one of my clients. He's the author of Basic and Steamborn. So today we're going to talk about why it's important to build your author team as your business grows, when to hire help and how to start your search, and how to hire the right person and avoid common pitfalls. So, a little bit about us. I've been working with authors since 2010. Eric has been publishing since 2013, and we've been working together since 2016. And yeah, we're both really geeky. So, this session is going to focus on people like author assistants, consultants, social media managers. I assume everyone here knows to use editors and cover designers, and then either formatters or using formatting software. All right, let's dive in. When should you hire help? So these are the questions I like to ask people to kind of determine when help would be useful. You're feeling overwhelmed by the work piling up around you. Are there things that you believe you should be doing but you're not doing, or you're doing them and giving up your writing time? And can you delegate your work? Also looking at your budget. We'll talk a little bit about that later too. So if any of these things seem like they are you, then that would be when it's time to consider hiring help. The hardest thing with this is that there is no one-size-fits-all answer. Every author I talk to is different. They have different needs. I wish there was an easy answer to be like, yes, you need help. But the only person that can answer that is going to be you. I've met some authors who just can't delegate their work. They need to be in control of it. Obviously, hiring someone to help you wouldn't help you then. But there are some reasons why hiring help is something to consider, especially as you grow your career. So the first is that it can save you valuable time. Just because you can do something doesn't mean it's most effective for you to do it. Obviously, the thing that you can do is write. So when you're doing things like social media posting or registering your copyright or working on your strategy, that is taking away your writing time. So by hiring help, you have more time to focus on what you can do, which is write. In the long run, you can earn more money. So unlike other businesses, like being a lawyer, obviously you get paid by the hour. So having someone write up your notes for you, that can save you money. But for authors, it's a little bit different. You're not getting income based on your hours that you work, but the more books that you have, the more income you're making. So having someone to take things off your plate gives you time to write more and make more income. And I should note that all of these slides are going to be on my website, so that's why I'm kind of blowing through these. We'll do Q&A at the end so that we can get into your particular needs. So the third thing that can be helpful is getting support and encouragement. No matter how you publish, it's good to have someone to talk to who understands the industry. I always like to say, family and friends are great, but if they're not part of the industry, they don't always understand the struggles that you're going through. So working with someone who understands that is going to be really helpful. And then they can give you professional advice. Which goes into expert guidance. So having someone on your team, it can help you keep your deadlines and keep you organized. It can also help you with brainstorming through, if you're planning a new series launch, or if you're struggling with, you got a bad review, having someone that understands publishing industry is going to be able to solve your particular problems. And they might be better than you, at least at some things. It's kind of like why we hire cover designers. They have specialized skills. So if there's a particular thing that you're not great at, hiring someone who is can be really helpful. I always like to go into like promotional graphics. Authors are very creative, but that does not always translate into the visual arts. So having someone that's really good at graphics can be awesome. Same thing with newsletters. One thing that I've done a lot with authors is when they give me a newsletter, I can then go and tweak it, make sure, like when you're a step outside of it, you can look and say, like, from a reader's perspective, this is too sales pushy. But we can change the wording here, and it will make it do the same thing that you want, but seem less pushy. So that is one of the benefits of having someone to bounce ideas off of. And then the common pitfalls of hiring people basically boils down into you hire the wrong person. So the first way that I see this happen is you hire the wrong person for the job. So it's you hire a PR company and you really need an assistant. You hire an assistant, but you need someone to do consulting strategy work with you. So this seems really simple, but I find when authors are kind of drowning with work, it can be really easy to just yell help. And from my perspective as someone who helps authors, I'm like, I kind of need more than just help. Like, where are you struggling? So my advice for authors is when you can to write down the areas that you struggle in or things that you want to do but haven't been able to get to, things that maybe you do right now but you just don't like doing and would like someone else to do for you. If you have that list, it's going to help you find the right person. So this is kind of similar to the first, but there's also different skills that different people have. So I find like the author assistant industry, there are a very wide range of assistants. You have people that are just starting out and people who are really experienced. So it's important to know the kinds of things that you're looking for so that you can match them to the service provider. For example, if you need someone who will do social media posting and you want to hire an assistant and they don't do social media posting, obviously that's not going to work. And then 3 is hiring someone without enough or the right kind of experience. This gets into kind of where you are in your career. If you're an author who's really well established and you need someone who can just take the task and run with it and doesn't need to be trained, then you need someone with that more experience. There's also the types of experience when it comes to what types of books and also what kind of careers the person works with. So if you're a traditionally published author, you want someone who understands that industry. If you're an indie author, you want someone who understands that industry. And not all service providers serve all publishing paths or all genres. So if you're a romance author, you might want someone who specializes in that, fiction versus nonfiction. Again, I feel like these are very obvious things, but I've seen people miss the mark on this and then be really frustrated. So to avoid this, I recommend looking for the recommendations on their website. If they've been in any book acknowledgements, if they have listed any past work experience, and then if they have references, to check those. And fortunately, there are bad apples in this industry. I don't think there is any perfect way to weed them out. Talking to other authors is your best bet, which is why I really encourage authors to make friends in the industry. It is everything. But if you don't have those kind of connections, you can still check the provider's website, their social media. If you're seeing that there's tons of errors, the website is awful, obviously don't hire them. And there are also sites like Writers Beware and Alliance of Independent Authors, which do have service ratings. So those are always good to check quickly before you go ahead with someone. So another big part of working with people is how your relationship is. So you can have someone that's really, really skilled, an author assistant who's super skilled, and an author who's awesome, and they just don't mesh well. That's important when it comes to working relationship. You're a partnership, so you need to be able to communicate well and get along well. Part of why me and Eric get along well is we're both really geeky, so we vibe well together. So some ways you can test this out is, one, just checking them out, social media, their website, their newsletter, you see if they have common interests. If they have very different political opinions to you, like maybe that won't work. There's also, sometimes you can do smaller projects before going long-term with someone. And then often there's consultations that people offer, so sometimes it's free, sometimes they're paid, but that's always a good way to start, to just get a feel for the provider and what they can offer, and if you guys are going to work well together. So how you then go and find help, the best is obviously asking author friends for recommendations. If you do not have those, other alternatives are the Self-Publisher's Ultimate Resource Guide. That's a whole list of service providers. There's Authors Atlas, Authors EMS, Readsy. I also have a page on my website for author assistance, if that's who you're looking for. So hiring people, that sounds great, but what if you can't afford to hire someone? Like most service-based occupations, the more experience, the more you pay. And if you have a limited budget or a non-existent budget, there are programs out there that might be able to help you either find money for your writing or just find some kind of consulting help. So there are a couple here that I listed. Funds Writers is a really good one for finding ways to get money to fund your writing. There's also, in the States, we have the Small Business Administration, which does provide free coaching for small businesses. And there are sites like MicroMentor, which do free mentorship programs. So all of these slides are on my website, katetilton.com/PendCon. But I really wanted to be able to do Q&A with you guys to talk about working with people and answer your particular questions. So we'll open it up to that. Yes.
What are your thoughts on working with interns?
Okay, yeah, so interns, it's the same thing when it comes to figuring out where you are in your career. So if you are willing to train an intern to do the work, that can be awesome. I don't believe that authors need to pay for the most expensive person just because they have the most experience. Like that is not, if you don't have the budget for that, it's not feasible to then dig yourself into a hole just to get that kind of help. So interns can be great. Everyone starts somewhere. When I first started in 2010, I didn't have experience. I started with one author. I did things like going over her emails and just weeding them out. Like, here's junk stuff, here's fan letters, here's opportunities for you to speak. So you can build from there. So I think it's a great opportunity. Yeah.
How many clients do you take on at a time? Without getting overwhelmed, I would think, for me personally, I have a personal assistant, so they focus just on my stuff. So how do you manage that?
Okay, so the question is, how do you manage working with multiple clients? For me, my job is this. I don't have another job. Like, this is my day-to-day career. The way that I work is I have hours for each client, and those are booked for that month. And that way I know exactly how to arrange my schedule. So things like today, where I'm speaking here, obviously I'm not working. So I make sure that the hours that I have are hours that I can do, so I'm not overwhelmed. On average, I work with about 14 to 16 hourly clients, and then I do consultations on the side.
And she's way more organized than the rest of us, so that helps a lot.
That goes into the whole, they might be better than you at something.
I'm sure. Next question. What does she do for you? Specific tasks do you have?
Quite a bit. She's recently, she helped me file for copyrights. She helps manage my launch teams, reader groups on Facebook. lots of stuff. I mean, anything that I'm like, wow, I'm going to have to sink X amount of hours into this, but Kate could do it. That's something I like to kind of hand off and have her help with. And the other thing is, like, some months we won't even have stuff like that. We'll just literally just be bouncing marketing ideas off of each other and figuring out new things to test, which is really nice to have somebody that you can kind of use as a sounding board. Otherwise, it's...
I like to joke that my other part of my job is that I'm a counselor. I talk authors off ledges. I go into the whole, it's great to talk to friends and family, but when they just don't get why that review really, really stinks, you can talk to me about it. And also other providers, it's not like a pitch to just hire me. This is important to me because I believe there are a lot of authors that go it alone and they think they have to do everything on their own. And that's just not how, companies work. It's not how we work as people. We do better when we work together. We can, it's like why you work with an editor for your book. You might have written an awesome manuscript, but the editor is going to make it better. So having someone on your team can help you with whatever you're doing and make it better.
Also, if you're branching out into like a new area and they know more about that area than you do, a big thing Kate did for me was like overhauling my website, my poor old website. But yeah, she brought it into the, let's not even talk about how bad that old website was. It's much better now.
That was a copy and paste all of the old content over because you can't export it. Which is a problem. Yes, Vicki?
You mentioned matching up. That was a good point. Someone who likes the type of genre that you write. I was curious, what are your personal favorite genres?
So this is kind of funny because for me, I don't look at the genre as my key factors. For me, it's the kind of person the author is. I really believe that doing publishing, we are making art. Reading has been what's gotten me through all my tough times. So for me, I'm looking for authors who they want to do the best possible book that they can. I believe in striving for excellence, not perfection. So there's some authors that this is just a money game for them, and I'm like, then you're not for me. So genre is less important to me than the kind of person. Genre can be super important when it comes to things like you're hiring a publicist and they're trying to get you speaking gigs. If you're doing, romance fiction and they work with just nonfiction business people, that's probably not going to be a good matchup. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Yes?
In your opinion, what is the difference between a publicist and a consultant, as far as what they can do for an author?
That's a great question. So, publicist is going to be someone who can get you visibility. So, if you want to get on TV, radio, sometimes they also handle things like getting blogs and interviews, that kind of thing. A consultant is more someone you're going to ask particular questions, whether that's about how you market or if it's about how you publish. I've had new authors that come to me who are just like, there's all this information on the web and it's great, but now I'm confused. What do I do? Like, what's offset printing? And is that something I should be doing? And if I'm going to do print on demand, should I use Amazon or should I use Ingram? And what's the difference? So those kind of questions are really good to have a consultant work on.
Yeah, so I work with Rick at Red Coat, which is my PR company, and then I work with Kate as my assistant. So and they definitely do not do the same things. Kate helps me with a lot more technical oriented stuff, and Rick is more. He'll help me even design swag. Talk more about what conventions are good to go to, which conventions you should probably avoid. He's really kept me from putting my foot in things like that too. So even more than just getting me speaking appearances and stuff, he's got good visibility in the industry because he helps organize a convention and he knows a lot of the people that are running a lot of other conventions across the country. So it's a different kind of resource.
I will say this is one of those things that there is no kind of set, assistant does just this, consultant does just this, PR does just this, which is why it can be tricky when you're trying to find the right person for you. There's some assistants who are like, I will not touch anything to do with marketing at all. And then there are others who are just like, yeah, sure, we'll talk about marketing strategy, that's fine. which is why if you can do a smaller project to begin with, or doing a consultation with someone to begin with, that can be really helpful in making sure they're what you need. And again, that's why I'm write a list. If you can write down what you're looking for, that will help. I've had many, many emails from people being like, hey, can you get me on TV? And I'm like, no. Nothing on my site says that. I don't have the connection, so I'm not going to take your money and not be able to help you, because that's important.
Was that me that asked?
No, it wasn't you. Yes.
Do you have any recommendations in terms of pay structure? Like, I find when I'm looking at various different things, like obviously if you're paying for an editor, you're paying for Word, but with assistants and stuff, it's like you can pay for a month or this many hours a month or pay like I'm going to do X amount of project, how many hours. Like,
Yep.
is there anything that to avoid pitfalls there? Is there any risk either way? Any recommendations?
Yeah. So the question is about pay in general and how that works, which is, again, and why it's not in this presentation. And I was like, we'll do this in Q&A, because every person who sets up shop is different. I've seen some assistants where they do hourly work and then they charge you at the end of the month. Some who charge you like a retainer, like I'll charge you this amount for this month. This is really a matter of figuring out what's going to work for you. I always like to do it that, you pay for the hours, you know that they're there, and that way you also know what your budget is versus I just work and then send you a bill later. So when you go into that kind of relationship, it's figuring out, is that going to work for you? Some people don't like paying in advance for services. Other people, they don't want to be slapped with a bill at the end of the month and be like, oh, I didn't know. So that would be the best thing I can offer, is to just make sure that you have those conversations with whoever you're going to hire so you don't get surprised. Rates are very varied. The more experienced, the more they're going to cost. Someone mentioned doing interns. Like, you might not pay your intern. The risk of that is going to be that they're going to be probably short term. They might be a college student that you're doing it for a semester and then that's it, and you're investing your time. So usually the more money you're going to spend, the less time you're going to spend having to teach them how to do the task. Does that help?
And I do, I work with a couple different people, and some of them I will pay like, hey, we're going to work together for 4 hours or 8 hours this month, and we'll set the rate, and that's the agreed upon rate, the agreed upon time frame, and that's the end of it. Other companies, I pay a monthly rate, and no matter how much they do, I'm still paying that monthly rate. Some months it's like, why am I paying this monthly rate? But other months it's like, wow, they did way too much work for the amount that I'm paying them. So it really depends, and there's also some trust that you have to have with the companies that you're working with. But like Kate said, it really varies from group to group.
Yeah, which is why it's really important that you figure out what you're comfortable with. If you're not comfortable paying someone like a monthly retainer where there's not a set amount of hours and it's just I'll do stuff for you, then don't work with them. If that's something that you're totally comfortable with and you really trust the person, then by all means. So service better set that up based on what works for them. For me, let's talk about managing my schedule. I need to know that I have the hours in that month to be able to physically work that amount, and I also want to make sure that I'm not, my quality of work is not suffering by overworking. So that's why I charge at the beginning of the month for that month, so that way I can plan accordingly.
Behind the pillar.
Yeah.
This question is for Eric. What was the impetus for you finally to say, okay, I need to hire help?
I think Kate probably remembers this story better. What was it? Was it managing the launch team, or?
I think it was. It was Eric and I met via Twitter. I used to run a Twitter chat, and he was in town for a wedding, right?
Yeah.
And I just moved back to Georgia, and I'm like, hey, I'll meet you. So Eric and Amy and I went to Olive Garden at 11 a.m. We were like, hope they're open. They were. We were the only people there. And we just, got talking shop, because that's what you do when you have two people in the industry that get together, like here. And he mentioned something that he needed to do, and I was just like, do you realize that's what I do every day? And he was just like, oh, yeah, I guess I should hire you, right? And I'm like, you can. So that's how we started working together, and yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the launch team, because the website was not something Eric thought he needed to fix. And,
This is a small matter of contention between the two of us for a while.
yes.
Who picked up the check?
At the dinner, I honestly don't remember. I think it
I don't
was
remember
Eric.
either.
And then I gave them a ride to the airport.
Yes.
And they saw my Darth Vader GPS, and I was just like, if you're cool with that, then I know we're going to be good together.
We got the better end of that deal.
Yes, Diana?
Maybe tell people about when, unfortunately, when the situation is not good and you've gotten in with somebody bad, how to end it.
How to end a relationship that has gone south. I think it's one of those where you kind of have to just bite the bullet and let them go. People handle that in different ways. If it's someone that you normally talk to, like over the phone, I think it's courtesy to then also let them go over the phone and not just send them an email. I remember like the first client that I lost, it was of course, a financial thing, but like I woke up to that email and it was devastating. So I've had authors handle those things in many different ways. Some people are like, well, I'll offer you severance, and I'm like, no, it's fine. I'll manage. My biggest thing that I would recommend for authors is to try to give people fair warning. If you're going, especially if you're doing like a lot of work with them, it's one thing to do in 4 hours and it's a couple $100. It's not a crazy amount, but if you are the big portion of their income and you're going to be leaving, it's good to give them, at least a month's notice and not wait for them to send an invoice and then tell them, hey, I'm not going to pay this invoice. I'm not working with you anymore. It's like, okay, thanks. So, yes.
I was curious to know how you work in terms of having access to user accounts, that sort of thing, like passwords.
Yeah, that's a great question. So working with passwords, this is one of those, every author is different. I have some who are like, here's everything. Here's my social security, here's my bank information. You manage my life. Cool, I'm fine with that. And I have others who are like, I'm never gonna give you my Amazon password. And I'm like, that's fine, I just then can't go on Amazon and fix things for you. So that's where it becomes a matter of trust. So that's another thing where it's really good if you can work with someone and give them something that is, maybe less risky than like your Amazon account or your bank account, and make sure you have a good relationship before you start giving them that access.
So it is really a requirement for most of the stuff you do?
It depends on the client and what they're looking for. So, for example, if you're working with someone who's going to do consultations with you and just be giving you advice, they don't need access to any of your passwords. They're just there to answer your questions that you have. So it is a brain picking session, essentially. Same thing, like someone who's doing PR work. They're going to be there helping you get gigs, maybe giving you swag, like they're not there fixing your stuff. If you need someone like going on Amazon and making changes, that's going to be an assistant. And yeah, they're going to need access or they're not going to be able to do that. Some people I know will use things like 1Password, where they have kind of a master password that they can then change. So that's an option.
And like some of the things that Kate and I work together on are like my newsletter. So she has to have full access to my newsletter service, otherwise she wouldn't be able to help with that. Book funnel to help manage my ARC teams. So yeah, you definitely have to have some trust.
I actually have some questions about that, both newsletters and our teams, like funnel passwords and all of that. Can you talk a little bit about what do you do? Like, I keep a very close art team, and I pretty much know everyone on there, and know their names, know their email addresses, and answer all their emails and stuff like that. But it takes a lot of time, right?
Yeah,
So,
launch teams take a lot of time. So
I would like to hear how you handle art teams and newsletter swaps.
So for launch teams, it does depend on the author, like everything. So for example, Eric's launch team, he has a Facebook group and then he has the email list part. So Eric is the one there engaging his fans in the Facebook group. I, of course, pop in and will be like, here, I found this thing of skulls, which I know you guys are going to like. But I handle the, here you go, here's your arc, here are the rules. You know, this is the deadline to turn things in, and I send them the reminders. So what's nice about that is then I'm the bad guy if I have to kick them off the team. It's not the author who's doing it, because I'm just there following the rules. I do a 2-strike you're out thing. I don't tell them I'm doing that, but that's what I'm doing. They get 1 warning, you know, for the first one that they miss, and the second one I just remove them from the list. And I think only once I've had someone come and be like, hey, why am I not on the team? And I'm like, oh, well, because you missed reviewing these 2 books. I'm like, if you review them, like, I'll add you back to the team, and they did. Awesome, everyone's happy. The benefit of having someone else manage your launch team is it takes away that time suck. You know, you can still be engaged with them if you have like a Facebook group, and that's great. It's a good way to keep them, you know, engaged and wanting to participate. But when it comes to the management of like making sure they actually did what they were supposed to do, that's usually better handled by an assistant if you can get one. And then newsletters was the other thing. So there's like regular monthly newsletters and there's newsletter swaps. So typically a lot of my clients, when I do like their monthly newsletters, is they send me like a Word document, like here's what I want to do, and then I make it look pretty. For newsletter swaps, that's something that it would depend on how they wanted to handle it. Like if they had connections with authors that they wanted to do the swap with, they're probably the better person to make that point of contact. Whereas I've had others where it's like, you know, I just want to do a newsletter swap. Can you find me authors who are similar? And then I go and have to look and do that kind of research. So whenever it comes to looking for someone that's going to serve your needs, those are really good questions to ask. Like, you know, these are the things I'm looking for help on. How do you handle them?
I have a question for Eric. When you were working full-time, how did you manage the writing, and at what point did you decide, I've got to have an assistant and stuff? I mean, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, when I was full-time, I worked myself into the ground. I mean, I worked too much. I basically worked 2 full-time jobs. I'd work the day job, I'd come home, I'd work full-time on the author job. So I knew I needed help far before I was, like, aware of the fact that I could actually get good help. So...
Which is why we're doing this session.
Yeah.
If you're underwater, there is help.
Yeah, because it's something you have to take into account, especially when you're still working a day job, is like your time is incredibly valuable. So you need that time to be able to write. So if you can pay someone to do some of your tasks and save you a couple hours a week or several hours a month or whatever you end up doing, I mean, that's more time for you to write or more time for you to look at those marketing campaigns that you're working on or outline your next book or whatever you need to do. And yeah, time's really precious at that point.
Yeah. And someone who does service provider work, they might be faster at something than you are. So you might be like, well, I can do my newsletter, but it's going to take me 2 hours to get this thing to look good. And I can hire someone else, and it's going to take them a lot less time. So that's, again, why I'm like, write down what you're looking for help with and what you're also willing to delegate. That's the biggest sticking point for me is like if someone wants to hire me but they don't want to then give me anything to do, there's no point in having a working relationship then because I can't help them if they're not willing to let me help them. So anything that you're like, I hate this, but I'm not willing to have someone else do it, then put that in the I don't want to delegate column. So beta readers versus ARC team, launch team. I think this is one of those kind of things that people throw terms around, they mean different things. I'm assuming by beta reader you mean, you know, the people who are going to read the manuscript and then give you kind of developmental feedback, pick out typos. Most of my authors will handle those kind of things on their own. A couple of them I handhold more, where I'll help them, like, you know, I send the manuscript to the person, I get the feedback back, give it to the author. Launch teams tend to be more when you're looking to get reviews for the book. We can also ask them if they find typos, sure, let us know. And then typically that's something that if I have someone report a typo to me, it either goes back to the author for them to give to their formatter, or if I manage that, then it's like I fix it in the formatting, or I'm the one sending it to the formatter. So it depends on the relationship and how much the author relies on me to fix the problem.
And for beta readers, a lot of people will tell you they have a beta reader team, and they've got like 10 or 15 people giving them feedback on something. I don't find that helpful. Like, I like having 1 or 2 trusted people that can read it over, give me feedback, and have more of that developmental input, and like that's it. After that, it goes to my editor, and off we go.
Yeah. And I would say I like having the beta readers handle it first before you send it to reviews, because if you're looking for the feedback from your beta readers to be kind of developmental, that means potentially you're going to have some big changes, so you don't want to then send it to people to have them review it and then be like, oh yeah, I killed that character. Sorry.
And now they're back.
They became a werewolf. Any other questions? Yes.
Does your team usually handle, okay, somebody's trolling your account? How do you handle trolls or people that like negative press or negative people in social media?
We ignore them. We ignore the trolls. We do not feed the trolls.
Block and delete.
So again, that's why it's good to have someone that you can then rant to about those things, because it sucks. It just does. But then if you do if you talk about how it sucks on social media, then people are like, oh, they're just whiny.
Although sometimes they're hilarious. I have to give it to the trolls sometimes. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good.
If you get somebody who wants to become an author assistant, how do you start? How do you get trained and something like that? It's not a question for me, it's actually a question for my daughter.
How did someone get started as working as an author assistant or service provider?
I mean, she does stuff for me, but she kind of wants to work for other people and doesn't figure out how to do that.
Yep. I believe a lot of this business is the networking aspect. It is, one, putting yourself out there and learning as much as you can. We're lucky in that we have the internet, and there are so many ways to learn different tasks. So when I first started, it was using what I was good at. I'm good at organizing things. So when the author's like, here's my email, can you please put it into these categories? Sure, I can do that. And then it's, okay, we're going to do a contest. And I'm like, okay. So you learn new skills. Currently, I'm working on doing offset printing with a client, which is a new thing for me. So it's a lot of then asking questions and researching. But when it comes in terms of finding clients, it's really that word of mouth. I was fortunate in that I started this when I was in high school. And a couple of years of just being engaged. Twitter chats were a huge thing that I was involved in. And, you have one client and then you land another client from engaging and being helpful on social media and on the web. And then I got an opportunity to do a blog post here, and then people still find that blog post today, and that was 2013. So there is no magic way. There are a couple of companies that will say you can get a certification in author assistance. I don't love that. I don't know how you can is that accredited? And how can you package all of this? It's an experience thing. So the best thing to do is to just go out there and try, do the best that you can and continue to be open to learning. I think that's for me, always a huge thing is no matter how much experience I have, it's always what's next? Things are going to change. What worked when I first started, blog tours were huge back when I was starting. Blog tours are not so big now. You have to be constantly learning and engaging, and that's why I don't, just do consultation work or just do an educational course. I want to be working on the ground with authors, that I'm always keeping up with what's going on. Yes? What I'm seeing that's most popular is Instagram. But that's another thing where it's Instagram's not going to be popular forever either. But that tends to be currently where a lot of promotion is happening. I also like watching what the traditional market is doing. I find that it can be really fascinating to see kind of where they're investing more of their money. And that's not to say that blogs are obsolete, but I think what we're seeing is now it's the blogs that are still around and still have impact are the ones where people have really put investment into making them, hubs of information versus people who are doing it casually as a side project. And same thing with Instagram. The accounts that are really big, that are going to have the most visibility, are ones where they're putting tons of work into it, and not just I post every month, occasionally.
I think we're about up.
Are we good on time, Rick?
I think we're.
Got another couple minutes. Got any other questions? Yes.
So, since, these sort of endeavors are kind of intimidating and they cost money,
Yep.
How do you recommend that authors choose how to build? Like, we all start somewhere. We probably can't all just jump in and be investing like thousands of dollars or whatever per month
Absolutely.
to consultants and assistants and stuff. So, like, where do you recommend we start?
So again, writing a list, especially looking at the things that either, like you really believe these things are going to be helpful for you, but you can't do them. Like if you just don't have the knowledge or it's just really difficult for you, then that would be the thing that you'd want to hire first. It's also, there is the option of like hiring someone to do a strategy session with you to look at that, like where are you in your career and where are the next steps. I've had a lot of authors where it's wonderful that there's so much information on the web, but sometimes that becomes overwhelming because then where do I start? So just having someone to bounce those ideas off of and then be like, okay, go this way can be good. Does that help? Anyone else?
10:45.
All right, I think we're good. Thanks for coming.